Hi, my name is Brian Caffo, and this is a brief lecture on version control. Remember, the theme of this course is contrasting what happens in real life versus the ideal data analysis. I think version control is one of those instances where it is exactly the ideal for data analysis, but it's a fairly easily attainable ideal, as opposed to many of the other topics in this class where it's very hard to obtain it. This version control just adds a little bit of work, but often saves you a lot of time. So now just return to this quote. When you write code, keep in mind that you're collaborating with your future self. And the ability to look at your code and go back to previous versions and see the history of your process is an incredibly important part of data analysis. So we talked in our report writing section, we talked about how important it is to create reproducible reports. Well, that's certainly one component of having a very well done and documented data analysis, but keeping all your versioning of your code as you go is another one. Not only does it help you for backup and archival purposes, but it also helps keep a log of exactly what you did and for data analytic purposes. So in general, version control is just good practice. And unlike a lot of the other topics in this class, it's pretty easy and it's directly under your control. Having said that, I'll take this moment to complain about Roger Pang. And so I've been using version control for a long time. I think the earliest version control I used was RCS, a fairly old version of version control, and then CVS, which was another older version of version control. And then Roger Pang at one point came into my office and said, everyone is using this program called Subversion, and you got to switch. No one's using CVS anymore. And so I resisted for a little bit, and then I said, Roger's almost always right about computing things. I'm going to switch to Subversion, which was a monumental effort, changing all my CVS repositories to Subversion repositories. And then the next day, Roger comes into my office and says, everyone's using Git, you got to quit using Subversion. So I resisted then for another long period of time to using Git and stuck with Subversion. But once I finally switched to Git, I was very happy about it. And I've noticed that I've been using Git for a while, and Git seems to be here to stay. It's not going to get supplanted by the next version control system. At least it doesn't appear to be so anytime soon. At any rate, so for the people that you're managing, you should be inspiring them to either use Git or Subversion or Mercurial or some of these kinds of tools for their analyses, some of these version control tools. So just to orient you to the software, I think if I'm going to make a recommendation, I'm going to suggest Git. And so Git is the version control software. It is what helps you keep a complete history of your code and your analysis files, and if you want, even your data files, and so on as you go. So you can go backwards to any point in time, or go forward, go forwards if you've gone back again. It just at no point is anything that gets checked into your Git repository does it get lost. So Git is the tool for your version control, and then you need a place to host it. Now you can do this yourself. If you're in a company, presumably you have version control systems in place. If you're at a smaller company, you might want to look at one of these Git hosting services. Some of the most popular ones, at least the two that I'm most familiar with, are GitHub, which I think is clearly the largest, and then Bitbucket. So these are not version control tools themselves. These are hosting places where you are pushing your code and files up. This is, in essence, hosting the Git software for you and then keeping track of your files. And so they're wonderful tools, and I would highly suggest this as using Git and using version control as a part of best practices and as part of your management strategy, encouraging the use or maybe requiring the use of these tools.